My name is Catherine and I am 58 years old. I live in a quiet suburb of Phoenix, Arizona, in a house filled with 30 years of memories. I always believed family was the safest place on earth. I believed my son would protect me, respect me, cherish me the way I cherished him. That belief shattered the day he pushed me into our swimming pool while I was grilling and everyone laughed. I did not scream. I did not cry. I climbed out in silence. That silence changed everything. Before we begin, I would love to know where you are watching from today. Drop your location in the comments below. And if you have ever felt disrespected by someone you loved, unconditionally hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. This story is about finding your voice when everyone expects you to stay silent. I need to take you back to the beginning so you understand how I ended up standing by that pool, soaking wet, watching my own son laugh at me. My husband Harold and I bought this house 30 years ago, back when Derek was just a toddler running around with grass stains on his knees. Harold fell in love with the backyard the moment he saw it. He said he could already picture summer barbecues, birthday parties, and grandchildren splashing in a pool we did not even have yet. So we saved for years, and eventually, Harold built that pool with his own 2 hands. He constructed the barbecue pit from bricks he collected from an old demolished school. Every single stone in that backyard carries a piece of his heart. Harold passed away 6 years ago from a heart attack. He was sitting in his favorite chair on the patio watching the sunset, and then he was gone. Just like that, 61 years old, and I became a widow overnight. The grief nearly swallowed me whole. For months I could not even look at the backyard without breaking down. The pool sat untouched. The barbecue pit gathered dust. But eventually I realized that hiding from those memories would not bring Harold back. Instead, I decided to honor him by keeping our traditions alive. Every month I host a family barbecue. I wake up early, go to the grocery store, buy the best cuts of meat, and spend the whole day cooking and preparing. I do it because I want to keep this family connected. I do it because I believe Harold is watching, and I want him to see that his legacy lives on. After Harold died, I made it my mission to be the glue that holds everyone together. I call my son Derek every week. I send cards for every birthday, every holiday, every small occasion worth celebrating. I babysat his children whenever he needed. I gave freely, loved openly, and never asked for anything in return except presents. I just wanted my family around me. Derek is my only child. 34 years old now. He works in real estate, selling luxury homes to wealthy clients. He drives a fancy car, wears expensive suits, and talks about money more than anything else. I remember when he was a little boy, he used to draw me pictures and leave them on my pillow. He would hug me every night before bed and tell me I was the best mom in the whole world. I do not know where that boy went. 8 years ago, Derek married Megan. She comes from old money, the kind of family that has country club memberships and vacation homes in multiple states. Megan is beautiful. There is no denying that. Tall blonde, always dressed like she is about to attend a magazine photo shoot. But from the very beginning, something felt off. She looked at our house like it was beneath her. She commented on my furniture, my dishes, my cooking. Small jabs wrapped in sweet smiles. At first, I told myself she was just adjusting. New marriages are hard. She came from a different world. I tried to make her feel welcome. I invited her to help me cook. I asked about her interests. I complimented her whenever I could. But Megan never warmed up to me. If anything, she grew colder over time. And slowly, Derek changed too. He started cancelling plans at the last minute. He stopped calling me first and only responded when I reached out. When he did visit, he seemed distracted, always checking his phone, always ready to leave. Megan would sit on the couch looking bored, and Derek would cut our visits short to keep her happy. I noticed other things too. The way Derek spoke to me shifted. His tone became sharper. He interrupted me more often. He dismissed my opinions without consideration. Once I suggested a restaurant for his birthday dinner, and he laughed and said my taste was stuck in the 1980s. Megan laughed too. I smiled and pretended it did not sting. Then there was the money. 4 years ago, Derek came to me asking for help. He and Megan had found their dream home, but they were short on the down payment. He needed $80,000. I had that money saved for retirement, but he was my son. How could I say no? Harold would have wanted me to help. So I wrote the check without hesitation. No contract, no formal agreement. Just a mother helping her child. Derek promised to pay me back within 3 years. That deadline passed 18 months ago. Every time I gently brought up the subject, he changed topics or made excuses. Once he told me I should consider it a gift, not a loan, when I reminded him that I needed that money for my future. He said I was being dramatic. I had Social Security, did I not? I had the house. What was I worried about? I should have seen the warning signs. I should have recognized the pattern. But I kept making excuses. Derek was under pressure. Megan was demanding. Real estate was unpredictable. He still loved me. He was just stressed. I told myself these lies so often that I believed them. Looking back, I realized I was terrified of losing him. He was all I had left of Harold. When I looked at Derek, I saw his father's eyes, his father's smile. I could not bear the thought of pushing him away, so I stayed silent when he was rude. I smiled when Megan insulted me. I kept hosting barbecues and hoping things would get better. They did not get better, they got worse. And everything came to a head on a sunny Saturday in July, the day we always celebrate Harold's birthday with a family barbecue. The day my son pushed me into the pool. I woke up at 5 a.m. that Saturday. The Arizona sun was already threatening to turn the day into a scorcher, so I wanted to get my shopping done early. I drove to the grocery store and picked out everything myself. Ribeye steaks thick and marbled just the way Harold liked them. Italian sausages from the specialty butcher. Fresh corn on the cob, ripe tomatoes, crispy lettuce. I bought ingredients for my mother's potato salad recipe, the one Harold used to say was better than any restaurant version. By 8 a.m, I was back home unloading groceries and starting preparations. I peeled potatoes and boiled them until they were perfectly tender. I chopped celery and onions so fine they would melt into the creamy dressing. I mixed everything with mayonnaise, mustard, and a secret dash of pickle juice that gives it that special tang. The potato salad went into the refrigerator to chill and let the flavors meld together. Then I moved outside. The patio furniture needed wiping down. Dust and pollen had collected on every surface. I scrubbed the tables until they gleamed, arranged the chairs just so, and set out the checkered tablecloth Harold had bought at a craft fair 20 years ago. I checked the pool water, adjusted the chemicals, and made sure the temperature was comfortable for swimming. I set up the inflatable toys for my grandchildren, a giant unicorn, and a basketball hoop that floats on the water. Around noon, the first guests arrived. My younger sister Linda pulled into the driveway with her husband Robert in their sensible sedan. Linda is 4 years younger than me, 54, and we have always been close. She brought a fruit salad and a bottle of wine, kissing my cheek as she walked through the door. Right away, Linda noticed something. She held my face in her hands and studied my eyes. "You look tired, Catherine. Are you sleeping?" I brushed off her concern. "I am fine, just busy getting ready." But Linda knows me better than anyone. She did not push, but I saw the worry in her expression. She helped me carry dishes outside while Robert set up a cooler full of drinks. Their children came too. Jessica is 28 now, a nurse at a hospital in Tucson, and Michael is 26, finishing up law school. Both of them hugged me warmly and asked how I had been. It felt good to have family around. For a little while, I let myself relax. I poured a glass of iced tea and watched the younger generation chatting and laughing. This is what Harold wanted, I thought. This is why we built this backyard. Then Derek arrived, 45 minutes late without a word of apology. His fancy car rolled into the driveway and parked in the spot closest to the house, even though that spot was usually reserved for me. Megan stepped out first, wearing a white sundress and oversized sunglasses, looking like she had just walked off a yacht. The children tumbled out of the back seat. Ethan is 8 years old, full of energy and mischief. Sophie is 5, shy and sweet, always clutching a stuffed rabbit. I walked toward them with my arms open, ready to embrace my grandchildren. But Derek brushed past me without even a hello. He walked straight into the house, heading for the refrigerator where I kept the beer. Megan gave me a thin smile, an air kiss somewhere near my cheek without actually touching me. The children ran toward the pool, already stripping off their outer clothes to reveal swimsuits underneath. Linda watched this entire exchange with her lips pressed together. I saw her start to speak, but Robert put a hand on her arm. "Do not cause a scene," his gesture seemed to say. So Linda stayed quiet, and so did I. I returned to the barbecue pit and started heating the coals. The steaks needed to rest at room temperature before grilling, and the sausages required a slow cook to get them perfectly crispy on the outside and juicy on the inside. I had done this 100 times. I knew exactly how long everything would take. But apparently, my timeline was not good enough for Megan. She wandered over to where I stood, fanning the coals with a folded newspaper. Her sunglasses were pushed up on her head, and she peered at the grill with an expression of distaste. "How long until the food is ready? We ate breakfast early and the kids are hungry." I smiled patiently. "The coals need about 20 more minutes to get to the right temperature. Then another 30 for the meat. So maybe an hour total." Megan sighed dramatically. "An hour? At restaurants they get food out in 15 minutes. Restaurants have commercial kitchens and prep cooks," I explained. "This is a backyard barbecue. It takes a little longer, but the taste is worth it." She rolled her eyes and walked away without another word. I watched her settle into a lounge chair by the pool, pull out her phone and start scrolling. She did not offer to help with anything. She did not watch her own children who were splashing dangerously close to the deep end. I kept one eye on the grill and one eye on Ethan and Sophie, making sure they stayed safe. That was when I felt the first twist of something dark in my stomach. A premonition maybe, or just the accumulated weight of years of being dismissed and devalued. Whatever it was, I pushed it down and focused on the food. Today was Harold's day. I would not let anything ruin it. The coals finally turned white and glowing, perfect for grilling. I laid the sausages on first since they needed the longest cook time. The fat began to sizzle and drip, sending up fragrant smoke that drifted across the yard. Linda came over to keep me company, and we talked about her grandchildren, about Jessica's new boyfriend, about Michael's upcoming bar exam. For a few peaceful minutes, everything felt normal. Then Derek appeared at my elbow. He had a beer in one hand and an impatient expression on his face. His cheeks were flushed, and I realized he had already finished several drinks. "Mom, when is the food going to be ready? We have been waiting forever." I checked my watch. It had been 40 minutes since they arrived, and 30 of those minutes were because they showed up late. "The sausages need another 15 minutes, I said calmly. "Then I will put the steaks on. Maybe 45 minutes total." Derek groaned loudly. 45 minutes. "Are you serious?" "Good barbecue takes time, honey. You cannot rush it." He took a long swallow of beer and glared at the grill. "You know what, Mum? This is why nobody wants to come to these things anymore. Everything takes forever. You are so slow." The words hit me like a slap. I stood there holding my tongs, speechless. Linda stepped forward with fire in her eyes. "Derek, that is no way to talk to your mother." But Derek just waved his hand dismissively. "Stay out of it, Aunt Linda. This is between me and Mom." He walked away before anyone could respond. I saw Robert put his hand on Linda's shoulder, holding her back. Jessica and Michael exchanged uncomfortable glances. Everyone had witnessed my own son speak to me like I was a troublesome employee. I turned back to the grill and flipped the sausages with trembling hands. "Keep it together, Catherine," I told myself. "Do not make a scene. Harold would want you to keep the peace." But the peace was already cracking, and I did not yet realize how badly it was about to shatter. Megan appeared next to me a few minutes later. She had finished whatever she was doing on her phone and apparently decided it was time to inspect my work. "Those sausages look burnt," she announced loud enough for everyone to hear. "They are caramelized," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "That is how they are supposed to look." She wrinkled her nose. "I do not eat burnt food. Make sure the steaks are not like that." I took a deep breath. "The steaks will be cooked to your preference. What temperature would you like? Medium rare?" But actually medium rare, not the dried out version you made last time. I did not remember serving dried out steaks at any previous barbecue, but I did not argue. "Of course, medium rare it is." Megan walked away without thanking me. I caught Linda staring at me with a mixture of sympathy and frustration. She mouthed the words, "Are you okay?" from across the patio. I nodded even though I was not okay at all. Derek came back about 20 minutes later. By then, I had moved the sausages to a warming tray and placed the ribeyes on the grill. They sizzled beautifully, and I watched the edges char exactly the way Harold had taught me. 2 minutes per side for medium rare, 4 minutes total. I knew this recipe by heart, but Derek did not care about recipes. "Are the steaks done yet?" he demanded. Ethan is complaining that he is hungry. Sophie is about to have a meltdown. "Almost ready," I said. 2 more minutes. You have been saying that all day." Derek's voice rose with each word. 2 more minutes, 20 more minutes, 45 more minutes. "Do you even know how to cook?" Everyone stopped talking. The yard fell silent except for the sizzling of the grill and the distant splashing of children in the pool. I felt all eyes on me. Linda, Robert, Jessica, Michael, even the kids. They were all watching. "Derek," I said quietly, "please lower your voice. No, I will not lower my voice. He stepped closer to me. You know what your problem is, Mom. You are stuck in the past. Everything has to be done your way on your timeline, like we are all supposed to just wait around for you. The world does not revolve around you. I do not think the world revolves around me. I just wanted to make a nice meal. A nice meal that takes 3 hours, Derek scoffed. Meanwhile, Megan and the kids are starving and you're out here playing Master Chef with a pile of bricks. This barbecue pit was built by your father. The words came out before I could stop them. I watched Derek's face flicker with something guilt, maybe, or shame. But whatever softness appeared, it vanished just as quickly. Yeah, well, Dad is not here anymore. He said it flatly, cruelly. And standing around worshipping his bricks is not going to bring him back. I felt like he had reached into my chest and squeezed my heart. Tears burned behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I turned back to the grill and removed the steaks, placing them on a clean platter to rest. The food is ready, I announced to no one in particular. Please help yourselves. Linda immediately came over and started arranging plates, trying to restore some normalcy. Robert helped distribute utensils. Jessica and Michael made themselves useful carrying side dishes. But the damage was done. The air felt heavy with tension, and even the children seemed subdued. I made myself a plate, though I had no appetite. I sat down at the edge of the patio, away from everyone else, and pushed the food around without eating. Across the yard, Derek was already on another beer, talking loudly about a real estate deal. Megan complained about the potato salad having too much mustard. Ethan threw pieces of his food at Sophie until she cried. And I just sat there wondering how my family had become this. The afternoon dragged on. I cleaned up the grill and wrapped the leftover meat while everyone else lounged by the pool. Nobody offered to help except Linda, who insisted on washing the serving dishes, even though I told her she was a guest. We worked side by side in the kitchen, and Linda finally spoke her mind. Catherine, she said gently, I have been watching this situation for years now. It is getting worse. I know. Derek and Megan treat you terribly. They use you for your house, your food, your money, and they give nothing back but disrespect. I know. The words were barely a whisper. Then why do you put up with it? I set down the dish I was holding and looked at my sister. Because he is my son. Because I am afraid if I push back, I will lose him completely. I will never see my grandchildren again. I will be completely alone. Linda took my hands in hers. But you are already alone, sweetie. You are alone in a crowd of people who do not appreciate you. That is the loneliest feeling in the world. I did not have a response to that. Deep down, I knew she was right. But admitting it felt like admitting failure. Like admitting I had raised my son wrong, loved him wrong, somewhere along the way, lost him entirely. Linda and I finished the dishes in silence. When we returned to the backyard, the sun was beginning its descent toward the horizon. The pool glittered gold and orange, and the children had worn themselves out swimming. Ethan and Sophie were wrapped in towels, arguing over who got to use the inflatable unicorn next time. I decided to start the second round of grilling. Some people had requested hot dogs and burgers after filling up on steak, and I wanted to make sure everyone left satisfied. That was my role, was it not? The provider, the caretaker, the one who made sure everyone else was happy, even if it meant I never stopped working. I stood at the barbecue pit again, loading it with fresh charcoal. The sun was behind me, casting my shadow long across the patio. The grill sat near the edge of the pool, about 3 feet from the water. Harold had placed it there so he could watch the kids swim while he cooked. I had never thought twice about the location. Derek wandered over. He had switched from beer to something stronger, and his eyes had that glassy, unfocused look I remembered from other unfortunate gatherings. Burgers ready? Yet I just lit the coals, I explained. It will be about 20 minutes. 20 minutes. Derek shook his head in disgust. Everything with you is 20 minutes. Good food takes time. I tried to keep my voice light. You keep saying that, but I think you are just slow. Old and slow. The insult landed hard, but I did not react. I focused on arranging the coals evenly across the grate. Actually, Derek continued, his voice getting louder. I think you do it on purpose. You want us all to wait around so you feel important. That is what this is about, is it not? You need to feel needed. That is not true. Sure it is. He stepped closer and I could smell the whiskey on his breath. Everything you do is about you. This house, these barbecues, making us drive all the way out here. It is all about you. I come here because I love spending time with family. I love cooking for people I care about. Derek laughed bitterly. Please, you love being a martyr. Poor Catherine slaving over a hot grill while everyone else relaxes. Give me a break. I turned to face him directly. Derek, I do not know what I did to make you so angry with me, but this is not appropriate. Please lower your voice and stop insulting me. Or what? He spread his arms wide. What are you going to do about it, Mom? The yard had gone quiet again. Everyone was watching. I could see Megan smirking from her lounge chair. Linda looked ready to intervene. Robert had his hand on her arm again, holding her back. I am not going to fight with you, I said firmly. I just want to finish cooking. No, I do not think so. Derek was swaying, slightly emboldened by alcohol and audience. I think you need to wake up, Mom. You need to realize that nobody wants to be here. We come because we feel obligated, not because we enjoy it. Then stop coming. The words tumbled out before I could catch them. If you hate it so much, stop coming. Derek's face twisted with rage. What did you just say? I said stop coming. If my hospitality is such a burden, if my cooking is so terrible, if my presence is so intolerable, then stay home next time. I will not force you. For a long moment, nobody moved. The tension was suffocating. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. Then Derek smiled. But it was not a pleasant smile. It was cold and cruel and calculated. You know what, Mum? You look a little overheated. Maybe you need to cool off. Before I could process what he meant, I felt 2 hands shove hard against my back. I lost my balance instantly. 1 second I was standing at the grill with tongs in my hand, and the next I was falling forward into empty air. Time seemed to slow down. I saw the turquoise water rushing up to meet me. I saw my tongs fly from my grip and arc through the sky. I felt the cold shock of water closing over my head. I plunged below the surface and came up gasping, my lungs burning my clothes, dragging me down. Chlorine stung my eyes. My carefully styled hair plastered against my face. My shoes filled with water and threatened to pull me under again. And then I heard it. Laughter. Derek was laughing so hard he had to bend over and hold his knees. Megan was clapping her hands and cackling like she had just witnessed the funniest thing in her life. Even Ethan and Sophie were giggling, though they probably did not understand why. The only people not laughing were Linda, Robert, Jessica, and Michael. Linda had her hand over her mouth in horror. Jessica looked like she might be sick. Michael had already stood up ready to help me, but I did not want help. I did not want anyone. I swam to the side of the pool with slow, deliberate strokes. My arms felt heavy, my legs like lead. I found the ladder and pulled myself up 1 rung at a time. Water streamed off my body, pooling on the hot concrete beneath my feet. My blouse clung to my skin. My pants were ruined. My shoes squelched with every step. I stood there dripping and looked at my son. The laughter began to fade. Derek's smile faltered. Something in my expression must have unsettled him, because he suddenly looked uncertain. Come on, Mom. He tried to sound casual. It was just a joke. Do not be so dramatic. I did not say a word. Mom, are you okay? Silence. Megan stopped laughing too. She exchanged a glance with Derek, and for the first time she looked uncomfortable. I turned and walked toward the house. My wet footprints left a trail across the patio. Nobody tried to stop me. Nobody said anything. The only sound was the soft drip, drip, drip of water falling from my fingertips. Linda called out my name once, but I raised my hand without looking back. The gesture said everything. Leave me alone. I walked through the glass doors into the kitchen. I walked through the living room, past the family photos on the wall, past Harold's empty chair, past 30 years of memories. I walked into my bedroom and closed the door behind me. Then I sat on the edge of my bed, still dripping wet, and stared at the wall. I did not cry. I did not scream. I did not throw anything or break anything. I just sat there in absolute silence, feeling something shift deep inside me. Something that had been patient and forgiving and accommodating for years finally cracked. And in that silence, I made a decision. That night, after everyone left, I sat alone in my living room. The house felt enormous and empty, haunted by the echoes of laughter that still rang in my ears. I had changed into dry clothes, but I could not seem to get warm. A chill had settled into my bones that had nothing to do with temperature. I reached for the photograph on the mantel. Harold and me on our wedding day, both of us young and hopeful and certain that the future held nothing but happiness. I traced his face with my fingertip. What happened to our son? I whispered. How did we raise someone who could do this? Harold did not answer, of course. But somehow I felt his presence in the room, a warmth at my shoulder, a steadiness that reminded me I was not entirely alone. I sat with the photograph for hours remembering. The night Derek was born, how tiny and perfect he was in my arms. His first steps across this very living room. His first words, which were not mama or dada, but cookie. Harold and I laughed about that for years. Our son always hungry, always wanting more. Maybe that was the problem. We gave him too much. We taught him that he could have whatever he wanted whenever he wanted it, and someone would always provide. We never taught him gratitude. We never taught him respect. Or maybe we did teach those things, and somewhere along the way, he forgot. Maybe Megan's influence corroded his values. Maybe the world changed him. Maybe I would never understand. What I did understand was this. I could not change the past. I could not go back and parent differently. I could not force Derek to become the man I raised him to be. All I could control was my own behavior going forward. 3 days passed. 3 days of waiting by the phone, expecting a call, an apology, some acknowledgement that what he did was wrong. Nothing came. On the 4th day, my phone buzzed with a text message from Derek. Mom, when is the next barbecue? We want to come over this weekend. The kids are asking for your potato salad. I read the message 5 times, convinced I was missing something. A sorry tucked between the lines, a hint of remorse. There was nothing. He was acting like the pool incident had never happened, like pushing his mother into the water while the whole family watched and laughed was just another Saturday afternoon. Something inside me finally broke, not in a dramatic, destructive way. It was more like a knot untying, a chain snapping, a door swinging open that had been locked for far too long. I did not respond to the text. Instead, I called Linda. She came over that afternoon. We sat on the patio with glasses of iced tea, looking out at the pool that still haunted my dreams. The water sparkled innocently in the sunlight, giving no indication of the humiliation it had witnessed. Tell me everything, I said. Tell me what you have seen over the years. Do not spare my feelings. Linda hesitated. Are you sure? Yes, I need to hear it. So she told me. She told me about the first time she noticed Derek speaking disrespectfully to me years ago at a Christmas dinner. She told me about Megan's constant criticism of my home, my cooking, my lifestyle. She told me about the looks they exchanged when I left the room, the eye rolls, the whispered comments. I heard them once, Linda admitted. At Thanksgiving 2 years ago, Megan said you were pathetic clinging to a dead man's memory in a house you could not afford. Derek agreed with her. The words should have devastated me. Instead, they felt like confirmation of something I already knew. Why did you never tell me? Linda's eyes filled with tears. Because I thought you knew. I thought you saw it and chose to ignore it. I thought if you wanted to confront it, you would. And I did not want to be the one to shatter your relationship with your son. I reached across and took her hand. You did not shatter anything. They did. And I let them because I was afraid. What are you going to do now? I took a deep breath. I am going to stop being afraid. The first call I made was to a lawyer. Her name was Patricia Reeves, and she specialized in family financial disputes. I explained the situation, the $80,000 loan to my son, the verbal agreement to repay. Within 3 years, the complete lack of documentation. Patricia was honest with me. Without a written contract, the case would be difficult. My word against Derek's. But she suggested a formal demand letter, something on legal letterhead, that would make it clear I was serious about recovering my money. Send it, I said without hesitation. The letter went out on a Monday. I imagine Derek received it by Wednesday at the latest. I know this because Thursday morning my phone exploded. 23 missed calls, 47 text messages. Derek's name lit up my screen over and over again, each notification more frantic than the last. I did not answer. I did not respond. I let him stew in his panic. Finally, he showed up at my door. He pounded on it with his fist, shouting my name. Mom, open up. We need to talk about this. I opened the door calmly. Derek was red-faced and disheveled, clutching a copy of Patricia's letter in his trembling hand. What is this? He demanded. You hired a lawyer against your own son. I hired a lawyer to recover a loan. I corrected him. A loan you have refused to repay for 18 months past the agreed-upon deadline. That is not. He stammered, trying to find his footing. You cannot be serious. We are family. Yes, we are family. And you pushed me into a swimming pool while everyone laughed. And you never apologized. And you continue to treat me with complete disrespect. So yes, Derek, I am serious. He stared at me like he had never seen me before. Maybe he had not. Maybe the woman standing in front of him now was a stranger. The old Catherine would have backed down, would have apologized for causing a fuss, would have torn up the letter and pretended everything was fine, that Catherine was gone. Mom, come on. He tried a different approach, softening his voice. We were just having fun at the barbecue. I did not mean anything by it. You did not mean to humiliate me in front of the entire family. You did not mean to disrespect me in my own home. It was a joke. It was not a joke to me. Silence stretched between us. Derek's jaw clenched. I could see him calculating, trying to figure out the right move. Okay, fine. He held up his hands. I am sorry. Is that what you want to hear? I am sorry I pushed you in the pool. Now can we forget about this lawyer nonsense? I shook my head slowly. An apology is a good start, but it is not enough. I want the $80,000 you owe me. I want to be treated with respect, and I want you to understand that things are going to be different from now on. Different how? No more barbecues at my house. No more last-minute demands. No more insults about my cooking or my home or my life. If you want to have a relationship with me, it will be on terms that include mutual respect. Derek's face hardened. You are being ridiculous. You are going to tear this family apart over a stupid prank? No, I said quietly. You already tore it apart. I am just finally acknowledging the damage. He stormed off without another word. I watched his car peel out of the driveway, leaving tire marks on the concrete. Then I closed the door, leaned against it, and let out a breath I felt like I had been holding for years. The months that followed were not easy. Derek cut off all contact with me. No calls, no texts, no visits. Megan blocked me on social media, but not before posting several vague but pointed messages about toxic family members and knowing when to cut people off. Apparently, I was the villain in their story. I missed my grandchildren terribly. Some nights I would lie awake thinking about Ethan and Sophie, wondering if they asked about me, wondering if they even remembered me. That pain was real and constant, a wound that would not heal. But something else was happening too. Something I had not expected. I was healing in other ways. For the first time in 6 years, I did not feel obligated to plan monthly barbecues. My weekends opened up, my grocery bills dropped, my stress levels plummeted. I had not realized how much energy I was pouring into events that no one appreciated. I started doing things for myself. I enrolled in a painting class at the community centre. I joined a book club at the library. I reconnected with old friends I had neglected while I was busy catering to my son's demands. I even started dating again, coffee dates, with a kind widower named Arthur, who I met at the farmer's market. Linda and I grew closer than ever. She came to visit every other weekend, and we would spend hours talking about everything and nothing. She helped me see that I was not crazy, not unreasonable, not a bad mother. I had simply stopped accepting treatment that I did not deserve. 6 months after the pool incident, I made another decision. I sold the house. It was the hardest choice I had ever made. 30 years of memories lived in those walls. Harold's barbecue pit, the pool he built with his own hands, the bedroom where we slept together for 3 decades. Every corner held a piece of our history, but it also held the memory of my son's hands on my back, pushing me into the water. The sound of laughter echoing off the surface. The cold shock of betrayal. I needed a fresh start. I bought a smaller house closer to Linda, a cozy 2-bedroom cottage with a little garden and a front porch perfect for watching sunsets. No pool, no barbecue pit, no ghosts. The profit from the sale was more than enough to cover my retirement needs. I no longer worried about the $80,000. If Derek ever paid it back, fine. If not, I would survive. My peace of mind was worth more than any amount of money. Then 7 months after I last heard from him, Derek called. His voice was different, smaller somehow, humbled. He asked if we could meet. I said yes. We met at a coffee shop, neutral ground. He looked tired, older than his 34 years. He told me that he and Megan were getting divorced. She had been having an affair. She had taken him for everything he had. The house was going into foreclosure. He was moving into a small apartment on the other side of town. I listened without interrupting. When he finished, he sat there with his head bowed, waiting. "Mom," he finally said, "I am so sorry." For what specifically, I needed to hear him say it. For all of it. The way I treated you, the things I said, pushing you in the pool. He winced at the memory. I was so caught up in trying to please Megan, trying to be someone I was not. I forgot who actually loved me. I let his words settle. They did not fix everything. You cannot unbreak a bone with an apology. But they were a start. I forgive you, I said, but forgiveness does not mean we go back to how things were. I know, he nodded miserably. I know I have to earn back your trust. I wanted you to know that I see it now. I see what I did. We talked for 2 more hours. He asked about my new house. I told him about my painting class. He showed me pictures of Ethan and Sophie, and I cried a little seeing how much they had grown. He promised to bring them to visit, and this time I believed him. It has been 1 year now since that day at the pool. 1 year since I climbed out of the water in silence, dripping and humiliated while my family laughed. 1 year since everything changed. Derek and I are rebuilding our relationship slowly and carefully. He comes to visit once a month. He brings the children and I bake cookies with them in my new kitchen. We do not talk about Megan. We do not talk about the money. Some wounds are best left alone. He has started paying me back $200 at a time. It will take years to settle the debt, but that is okay. The payments are not really about the money. They are about accountability, about Derek learning that actions have consequences. Ethan apologized to me a few months ago. Out of the blue during a visit, he tugged on my sleeve and looked up at me with serious eyes. Grandma, I am sorry I laughed when Dad pushed you. That was mean. I knelt down and hugged him tight. You were just a child. You did not know any better. But I should not have laughed. No, I agreed. You should not have. And that is a good lesson to learn. We do not laugh when people get hurt. He nodded solemnly, and I felt a spark of hope. Maybe the cycle could be broken. Maybe this generation could learn what Derek forgot. I spend most of my time now doing things that bring me joy. I paint watercolors of Arizona landscapes. I tend my garden. I have dinner with Arthur twice a week, and we talk about books and movies and the grandchildren we both adore. I visit Linda often, and she visits me. I have built a new life smaller, but infinitely more peaceful. Sometimes late at night, I think about the woman I used to be. The one who accepted disrespect because she was afraid of losing love. The one who gave until she had nothing left. The one who stood at the edge of a pool, literally and metaphorically waiting to be pushed. That woman deserved better. But she did not know how to ask for it. Now I do. If you are watching this story and recognizing pieces of yourself, I want you to know something important. Setting boundaries does not make you selfish. Demanding respect does not make you difficult. Walking away from toxicity, even when it comes from family, does not make you a bad person. Sometimes the people who are supposed to love us hurt us the most. And sometimes the bravest thing we can do is stand up dripping wet and shivering and choose ourselves anyway. My son pushed me into a pool because I was not grilling fast enough. Everyone laughed. I climbed out in silence. That silence was not weakness. That silence was the beginning of my strength. So let me ask you, where in your life are you staying silent when you should be speaking up? Who is treating you badly that you keep forgiving without change? What would happen if you finally decided that you deserve better? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one and I would love to hear your stories. If this video touched your heart, please hit that like button. It helps more people find these stories. Subscribe to the channel if you want more content like this, and share this video with someone who might need to hear it today. Thank you for spending this time with me. Thank you for listening to my story. Whatever you are going through, remember this. You have survived 100% of your worst days. You are stronger than you know. Take care of yourself and be gentle with